The ATF has sent out a notice to all FFLs that the new Form 4473 is supposed to be used effective immediately. Now let's start with printed copies of these are not available yet, nor is the e-form version of the 4473 available, but everybody's been instructed you use this effective immediately, because you can go to the ATF's website and find a PDF, download and print it, which is the instructions that they're given to the FLs effective immediately. Now, this new Form 4473 has got a lot of changes, and if you're like me, you kind of get used to filling out these forms, so when you see the changes, you definitely notice them, but there's some very significant changes that you need to be aware of. So I'm just going to go through all of the major changes on this form. First, they've added a privately made or manufactured firearm, or a PMF section in Section A. So what this is if an FFL buys a gun from somebody that's been self-made or self-manufactured, that they have to, this is their documentation part of that. That's the first time we have ever seen that on this form. It's a very new thing to it. But this is, a lot of these also, we'll talk about, they have to do with the Safe Community Act as well. This is a first implementation of those things. All right, the second one is a really big one. The second one is when you put in your address and city, they ask, do you reside in city limits? So for example, here filming this video, I'm near Camden, but I'm way outside the city limits, but my address here is Camdenton. So, they're asking, do you live in city limits? Now, this is a big deal because it infringes on your federal rights, and they're starting to ask, well, what are your city limitations? So, for example, there are certain cities that you're not allowed to own certain firearms in. So even though you may not be buying that firearm within those city limits, they're going to start red flagging you if you live in places like Chicago, Philadelphia, New York. This is a big deal because the federal government is now going to start focusing more on what city laws are. And this is a big deal. So do you reside within the city limits? Yes or no? This is something that you need to kind of think about. And it says yes, no, or unknown, by the way. Maybe that unknown might be a good one to check there. I'll leave it up to you. All right, this one is really kind of more of the straw purchase category. It's under Section 21 and Section 21B. Do you intend to buy or sell to anyone listed in 21C through M? And then it lists a bunch of people who should not be owning firearms. Essentially saying, are you straw purchasing this gun? And then it's giving details like, are you doing it for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason? So be cautious of that. I mean, it's always been against the law to buy guns for people, but it went from, are you buying this for somebody, to, are you buying it for, here's a list of people. All right. Section 21C, the next change is, are you buying this gun for terrorist reasons or drug trafficking? I guess they want to know. So if you're going to use it for those reasons, now that you got to check yes. All right, the next major change, and here's where it really we get into the Safe Community Act, is the 10-day waiting period for anybody under 21. And there's a whole new section on that on this Form 4473. First, they ask the age. You have to say if you're under this age, yes or no. If you are, it warns you. There's a notice. There's going to be a waiting period. There's a potential of a waiting period that NICS could check up to 30 days. There's typically a 10-day waiting period, but because of all these changes, it used to be you'd wait so long and then they could issue the firearm. Now, if you keep going through this thing, other additions, or is a notice of additional delay of transfer under 21. So they may say, well, you're going to have to wait an additional blank day, and there's a blank, this many days. So then you could issue the firearm on blank date. So there's a lot of more administrative pieces for the under 21 buyers all of a sudden on this Form 473. So, just really quick, the biggest one, are you selling a privately manufactured firearm? Do you live within the city limits of the city you say you reside in? Do you tend to sell it to anybody illegal? But here's the illegal things that they might engage in. Do you tend to buy for drug trafficking or terrorism? And then there's the whole administrative piece of the under 21 kind of documenting, well, it's going to take this long, so it's this date. You just got to really document that now based on what the ATF says, or the FBI through NICS says you can issue. So there you go. There's the major changes. For me, oftentimes I buy so many guns that I go through, I just start checking boxes. Now you got to slow down again. You got to kind of read those again for what they are. And also, I know a few gun stores they do e-file only. They do the form e-form 4473 only. So I don't know what they're going to do. But this is where it's at, and it's effective immediately. So any thoughts or insight on any of this? Love to hear kind of what you're seeing if you run an FFL, kind of what you've heard from the ATF. How effective is it? What complaints you get? And anything you might know if you live in a city that has, because that's the one that really concerns me, is within the city limits. Honestly, it's the one that really, I'm like, wait a second, that is none of your business if I live within the city limits. So any thoughts or insight on any of that? If you live within a city that has strict Second Amendment laws, are you running into stuff with that? Now with all these things going on in Portland and Oregon and Washington and California now, Jersey and New York, Illinois, on and on about problems you might be running into. You live in Chicago, you might not be, you go to Southern Illinois to buy a gun, you might not be able to buy that gun because you live in Chicago. So any insight on that, definitely put that below as well. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel with a Patreon. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel is we take prayer requests. So please don't ever hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.